Hello everyone, I'm the real hero wins from Source Gaming, and today I'm joined by NantenJex and PushDustIn.
Hello.
Hello.
Today we will be talking about Super Mario Odyssey, and is it truly the best 3D Mario game, or just Mario game in general? Here we have Push on the side of, no, it's really not the best game, and then we have Nanten praising it. So, who wants to start us off?
NantenJex, do you want to go first?
Yeah, alright, fine. I'll go first. So, I think that Mario Odyssey is easily the best 3D Mario game, but potentially the best Mario game in general. I can't make that definitively without, giving it a bit more time, looking it back in hindsight. I got to see if I remember this game as fondly as I might remember something like Super Mario World, for example, before I can really say it's the best game. But I find this game a lot more enjoyable than Galaxy or 64. And there are a plethora of reasons for it. Although I do think that one very specific point, which I wanted to get out of the way first, is that over the last decade, essentially, every Mario game has kind of felt the same. It's that new Super Mario Brothers effect. And that's obviously been a big issue for a lot of people, and one of the main things they went about with Super Mario Odyssey was to completely throw that out the window and try and be as different as possible. And we know that Miyamoto had little to no involvement in this game, and they went completely off the walls and everything is new. Like, there's very few returning enemies. Goombas, because obviously, and then Hammer Bros, Cheep Cheeps, Piranha Plants, and or Bullet Bills, Chain Chomps. But that's about it. Like, there's no enemy Koopa Troopers, and there's no Thwomps or Womps or Boos or anything like that in this game. And there's a ton of new enemies and a ton of new locales, a ton of new NPCs. Like, they really decided to completely flesh out the Mario universe with like those maps with all the lore on it and everything like that. And I think that goes a long way to making this game feel incredibly refreshing from past Mario games and makes it far more memorable an experience than any other game in the last 10 or more years.
So, Push, do you have a rebuttal for that, or do you want to bring up a new comment?
Well, I will say this. I do not hate Mario Odyssey. I think it's a fantastic game. I've put well over 50 hours into it. I just don't feel comfortable saying it's the best 3D Mario game. And there's a couple of reasons why. The first is that there hasn't been a lot of moments where I felt really impressed or really wowed compared to 64 or Galaxy. Even Sunshine, there's a lot more moments I felt like, wow, they really just did that. But with Mario Odyssey, I didn't feel that sense of excitement, and especially with the number of power moons in the game. Currently, I think I have 876. It just starts to feel redundant. It just doesn't feel like a cohesive design, and I think a lot of Mario Odyssey, a lot of parts of Mario Odyssey won't be remembered 10 years from now. Whereas, going through the slides in Super Mario 64, those are more groundbreaking, those are more memorable to everyone.
So you feel like you actually did something in Mario 64, but like in Odyssey, it's kind of like the Korok seeds from Breath of the Wild. You like do random tasks, and it's like, here you go, here's your reward. Literally
Going through a list of challenges. The game, I will commend Super Mario Odyssey for being very accessible, but it kind of loses its appeal at the same time because of that accessibility. Like, with the number of power moons in the game, there's not really like an overarching design to the level. It feels like those power moons could be moved like 10 meters to the west or 10 meters to the east, and there'd be no difference. Like, they don't feel like an integrated part of the world. That's one of my main issues with Mario Odyssey. Whereas like Mario Galaxy or Super Mario 64 or even Sunshine, you always felt like you're building up towards that reward.
So, a few of my own comments to add on to what Push is saying. I love the kingdoms in Odyssey. I love the designs, especially the Luncheon Kingdom. I love like the little like polygon kind of like design it has with like all the vegetables and everything. I love like New Donk City. Everything just feels integrated well, but then there's other levels where you can definitely tell it wasn't as well thought out. Like, I forgot what the name of the Ice Kingdom was, but like, it just didn't, whatever, ice or snow, whatever you want to call it, but it just didn't feel as good as the other kingdoms. And I felt the same with, I don't remember what the other one was, but it was the water place, the first water place. It just,
The Lake Kingdom.
Again. Yeah, but like, it just didn't feel good. Like, the other kingdoms just stuck out a lot more. I think most people would agree New Donk City was definitely, I guess, the most fleshed out kingdom.
Yeah, that was like the first kingdom they made, I think, so that is probably why it's like, you know, the first one they showed off, the first one they actually developed, because I think it was so far different from anything Mario had done prior.
I think the reason that New Donk City is the best kingdom is also because of the way that the buildings are used. It creates a lot more interesting platform chances. Like, there's a lot more ways to jump between the different buildings or to scale the different buildings, and it really ties itself into Mario Odyssey's exploration kind of thing, whereas the other kingdoms, they feel a lot more empty because they lack that vertical height.
So I'm gonna rebuttal to pretty much everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
So if I forget something you said, remind me, because that was a lot of points there.
I was kind of rambling a lot of things, so
So I'm going to tackle this in the in order, ideally. So the first thing is the moons. You compared the moons to the Korok seeds and stuff, and there are some that I will agree with you, right? So I think I've got all 999 moons. I got to the very end, and those last 120 moons basically are pointless. You once you get every moon from every kingdom, you don't reach 999, and the rest you just have to buy from a shop, and there is really no benefit to getting all 99, and that's a bit of a disappointment, and it is a bit of a pain to do, because at that point you're basically grinding out coins, especially if you've been buying costumes, and I'll admit that's not great. But every other moon in this game serves a distinctive purpose for where they are and what they do. That you talked about there being some moons, you know, where if they just move slightly to the left or right and it wouldn't make a difference. But I find that those moons are more the minimum of the amount of moons in the game. The majority of moons provide something unique and way that you go about getting them. Like, almost every stage, at least before the post-game, because post-game does have a lot of shared moons, like every level has a Koopa running mini-game, for example. But the majority of moons are from a brand new experience, and every level provides that. Every time you go there, because of the capture mechanic, there's like 2 or 3 completely brand new things that get thrown at you, and those create memorable experiences for me. Those, like, every time I'm not sure what I'm going to be expecting in every world, I'm not sure what the game's going to throw at me, and the gameplay works incredibly well because it doesn't require you to learn a completely brand new moveset. The Hammer Bros, for example, automatically jump, and so you don't need to worry. That's what makes them difficult, and then the only button you're pressing is the move and attack button, which are mapped to the same button that Mario's is normally, so it feels natural, and then you use them in specifically new ways that other levels haven't before to get new moves. And that's kind of the reward. But there's also the fact that with Korok Seeds, there's essentially about 10 puzzles that are just repeated 70 times over. And the Korok Seeds, it's more about finding them in the world and not actually what you have to do to get them in the world. Whereas Mario Odyssey is a bit of both. Mario Odyssey's, it invites exploration and rewards it with the moons, and in most cases you have to actually figure out whatever puzzle or do whatever platforming challenge to get said moon. Like, for example, every level, all of those like platforming challenges, the special worlds, usually have 2 moons in them. And the game makes it very clear early on that every single one is going to have 2 moons in them. But that means that when you enter one of these worlds, you instantly start exploring and looking around. You instantly make sure you check every nook and cranny. You're looking left to right, looking for secrets almost off the bat and instinctively. And that helps not only to streamline things, because you're then not like later on in the game being like, oh, it was here hidden behind this wall all this whole time. and it's actually making you be more aware of your surroundings. And it's putting to good use the surroundings. You're talking about things feeling empty, but I don't feel like Odyssey has that case as much as, say, Mario 64 or Sunshine does. My good example for this is Bob-omb Battlefield in Mario 64. When you go up the staircase initially at the beginning and you got the Chomp Chomp on your left, you have this massive open space on your right that is essentially wasted space. You have a cannon, which is fairly close, and a Koopa Trooper with a shell that really you don't actually need at all. And I think maybe for the red coin, there's like a 1 red coin there. But otherwise, you have this massive open space that just leads to a dead end, with a couple of Goombas and nothing else. Super Mario 64 DS tried to fix that issue by having an extra star where the Chain Chomp's running around that area, thus putting it to good use. But otherwise, there is no reason to ever go there. Whereas if this was Mario Odyssey, there'd probably be a moon or 2 over there, which rewards you for actually going out of your way to explore that area. And I think that kind of reward system makes you feel like there's a point to exploring every area, because eventually in Mario 64 and Sunshine, you'll see a bit, unless you're like super young and you're just playing the game constantly and trying to see everything for the sake of seeing everything, you're going to start realizing when a space is just there for time wasting, essentially. And you'll eventually start streamlining your way and avoiding areas that are pointless. And Mario Odyssey gets rid of that entirely. And I think that's a really big benefit to having lots and lots of moons in the game, because you always feel like you're getting a reward and there's always a reason to be going around and doing everything. And like I said, I think the rewards where they're just kind of there are very minimal. Like, even if they're all just floating around, they're usually via a platforming challenge, whether you need to wall jump or jump from a specific height down. New Donk City being obviously a good example. I think there's like a moon that's on top. Yeah, there's like the moon on top of the tallest building, and obviously the challenge there is just climbing up to the top of that building. But that's still part of the challenge. It's not just there in the way. Like, you just walk and you see it. And there are some worlds that do have moons a bit like that, but they're minimal in my opinion. So that's my view for that. I'm trying to remember, what were your other points? Because I've forgotten some now. It's too long of talking.
That there wasn't really any memorable moments. Like, I will say this, at New Donk City's festival, and maybe the final Bowser fight is pretty memorable, but besides that, like, there wasn't really anything that I think that's going to last longer than the game.
See, I think I've got a few more that I thought were really memorable, like when the dragon boss appears before Bowser's Kingdom is really cool. In fact, Bowser's Kingdom in general in this game is super amazing. And I think the big fight at the end of it and the whole build-up and all the challenges you have to do, I would remember that. I think that kingdom definitely left an impact. There are some kingdoms that don't really do a lot. Like the Snow Kingdom is a good example, and so is the Lake Kingdom. And although the music in the Lake Kingdom is amazing, and the Seaside Kingdom, yes, I think the boss fight in that level is really good, and the eels are obviously sort of memorable, but I don't think not to the point of Super Mario 64's eel, because that was the first time. But like being the T-Rex for the first time in the Cascade Kingdom, I would say is memorable. And taking over that first enemy in the Hat Kingdom, I would say, is memorable.
I do want to touch upon, like, the first point you brought up, though, the gameplay. Honestly, I think this is the best physics Mario has had since Mario 64. But, like, they stick out a lot. He feels very, very smooth. You can do a lot with what you're given.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree that Mario controls very well, and that Cappy adds a lot of options. But I think one of the issues is that one of the things I mentioned, but I didn't really explain that well, was that the game isn't that challenging. Until you get to the very end of the game, where you get to like the Champions Road equivalent of the game. The game, it doesn't feel like it's there's not a lot of moons that require you to give up Cappy. I think there's only like 2 or 3 before the final stage, where you have to like put Cappy like a special room, not like the platformer challenging, the one platformer challenge, but like a special room. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do you mean the ones where you put Cappy away and you have to
Yeah, like,
yourself
but it's like a
using just
whole
Mario's mobility?
it's a whole room. It's not like for example, in Super Mario Sunshine, there was times when Bowser Jr. would steal your FLUDD.
Yeah.
In this game, you always have Cappy on, except for I think one Power Moon in Seaside Kingdom that I can remember.
No, that's not true. I mean, the way I know which one you're thinking about in the Seaside Kingdom.
The way they did it, it's like a simple platform and challenging in the main world where they have like something that's timed, but that's like usually
there is a few that take away Cappy in the main game. I remember them. Maybe they're more post game than they are before the game, but a lot of this game is post game. Like once you beat the game, I mean, you only need about 120 stars to beat the game, and excluding the ones you buy, there's something like 880 moons in this game. So quite a big majority of the game is in post, and there are more moons that open up only in post, and there are some that do require the use of Cappy a bit more. And you could arguably say that there are a lot of stages that require you to take over an enemy and utilize their powers, and in that case you can't use Cappy for any platforming challenges because you can't throw Cappy when you're in that form. So levels where you require Hammer Bros to jump up, or the little birds with the beaks that stick into walls, those platforming challenges you can't use Cappy. He's removed from you essentially. Because if you jump out of that enemy, you're basically restarting the whole thing.
Like the really good like Mario platforming in a 3D environment with just Mario doesn't happen until post game.
I'd say it depends on the level. New Donk City, I think, has quite because it has a really good vertical space, and
yeah, like I mentioned before, that's the only level.
I feel like the Wooded Kingdom has that as well. The Wooded Kingdom is quite a big vertical level, and with lots of different floors. Seaside Kingdom definitely not, because that's just massively open. But the and Bowser's Kingdom, I think, has some of that, but you have Cappy for those 3 ones.
Yeah, with Bowser's Kingdom, you're mostly utilizing the capture mechanic, like you mentioned. I really think it's only Metro Kingdom that really requires you to climb up.
I guess without Mario, yeah, because the Wooded Kingdom requires you to climb up and requires some challenges, but he's utilizing the onion or utilizing the tank or just having Mario do it on his own. It's usually one of those 3. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think there's enough of those platformers, and while they may be a lot smaller, those time challenge ones, there's a lot more of them than there were those levels in Sunshine which took FLUDD away. They're smaller and they're timed, but they still usually require some form of quick burst platforming skills.
I think most of them don't actually require any advanced techniques.
There's a few that do. Some require roll jumping, and there's a lot that require wall jumping. There isn't a lot that requires the dive jump onto hat to jump onto that, but there are areas in the game that do require that usually reward you with lots of coins and stuff. One good example being underneath the pyramid. There's like 400 coins on top of a thing that require absolute platforming precision to reach.
Yeah, but it's not like giving a Power Moon or a star or anything like that.
But I would argue, and I guess this can segue into another really good point of Mario Odyssey, that coins are just as valuable, if not more valuable, in this game than moons are. Because coins have never been that important in Mario. They were there to artificially heighten score, if that's something you cared about. And in a lot of 3D Mario games, they began being used as health. Coins in Mario Galaxy are the absolute most pointless thing, because star bits essentially became health, and coins were just kind of there to be there. And star bits were always much better because they not only gave you a health back, but you could shoot them. Whereas coins only gave you a bit of your health back. and so they became pretty pointless. But in Odyssey, you need coins to buy outfits, you need coins to buy moons, you need coins for your health, for your life, because when you die, you lose 10 coins. And while there is no such thing as a proper game over, because if you die with 0 coins, you just die, and then as if it was normal. But coins are such a valuable asset in this game that you feel the sting more by dying than you would in any other Mario game. Because in the end, if you keep dying and you keep losing coins, you'll have that constant fear that you're going to have to grind for coins, and nobody wants to do that. And Mario Odyssey does have that issue at the end with some post-game costumes that are ridiculously expensive, but they are entirely optional, and for the most part, just playing the game normally and try and collect as many coins as you can is the way to go to it in order to get everything you ever need. And I applaud them for actually finally making coins useful in a Mario game.
See, I completely disagree with that, because every time you die, there's almost always 10 coins right in front of you. In fact, when you die, you will drop those coins, and then you can immediately pick them up. Unless
you die in lava or failing a platforming challenge or anything like that. And there's also... because like those, unless it's like there is that Dark Souls type thing where you die and the 10 coins drop. If you die again, those 10 coins disappear, and unless you die just by an enemy accidentally running into you in a big open area, you're not going to get all those coins back. If they fall off a ledge, you lose them. If you fall off a ledge, you don't get that chance to get them back. And if you wait too long, they disappear. So there's a lot of times where, if it's in a really awkward situation, it might not be worth trying to get them back. You might be better off just abandoning those 10 coins to keep going on ahead, otherwise you might get stuck constantly dying over and over again just for the 10 coins. And I think that is a lot better than dying in previous Mario games, because lives were so abundant that it didn't matter. And unless you were really not good at Mario, then you would never see a game over screen. I don't think I've ever seen a game over screen in any 3D Mario other than 64 when I would have been really young, and it's the first 3D Mario game.
The thing is with coins in Odyssey, I feel it's comparable to like finding the Triforce pieces in Wind Waker, because with having to buy power moons like near the end of the game, yeah, it's a lot of unnecessary grinding that shouldn't be there. Even Wind Waker HD kind of fixed that mistake. You still have to buy some like map charts to be like read out, but you could still get more Triforce pieces than you could in the original, because they saw the like unnecessary grind in it.
See, I kind of disagree. You don't need to buy any moons to complete the game, and you only need to get to the final, unless you want to get 999 moons, in which case you do need to grind, and I don't think it's a good idea because it's not worth it. But to actually beat the game, you never need to buy a single moon. And every world only has a requirement to get 1 moon through purchasing. And they're only 100 coins, and it's pretty simple to get 100 coins. When you think about how many worlds there are, that's only 1,500, no, even less than that, coins you have to spend on moons, and you can get them naturally. I mean, there are some bonus rooms that offer 200 coins straight up. So it's not really a grind to do that. It's the only part of the game that's a grind is to get every costume, because of that one really expensive costume, and to get 999 moons, because it requires you to have 15,000 moons or something by the end of the game to do. And but that's for the real completionists, like getting all the Korok seeds. That's more like getting all the Korok seeds.
I've gotten I think 1 moon from every kingdom, and then I think I was trying to buy a bunch of moons from one kingdom because I didn't know that they were unlimited. I thought that they would eventually run out, and I had to get the whole stock from a kingdom. So I think I have 876 right now, and I think I'm only missing 20 moons or so.
Yeah, that sounds about right. When I got every moon apart from the purchasable ones, I was on 904. And a lot of people I've spoken to were on around... One person was on 886, and some other people were on about 901. That's usually... Because you're right, when you first see that you can buy 10 moons, the instinct is to think that there's a set... They've just increased the set amount, you don't realise it's unlimited. And then most people give up after buying about 20 moons.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, I want this money for the costume. for costumes and stuff.
And so most people end up like that. And then once you've got all the stuff, it's then just your decision whether or not you want to buy all the moons or... Because you don't need... Once you've gotten every moon in every kingdom, then you unlock the final boss, the final secret boss, which... I'll give Mario Odyssey a negative for that. The final boss isn't that exciting. I mean, the bosses aren't hard in this game anyway, but I would argue that Mario bosses have never been difficult, apart from the final Bowser boss in 64, and that's more because of the dated controls and stuff that make that boss hard, rather than anything else.
Well, I will say this. One thing that I think Mario Odyssey really suffers from is that a lot of the moons feel formulaic. Like, when you go into a kingdom, there's usually 4 things that you need to do before you can fight the boss or do the great challenge, and then you can get to the next kingdom. So, like, with the Seaside Kingdom, you had to unlock the 4 streams to the champagne bottle, right? With the Snow Kingdom, you had to do the 4 different rooms before getting to the race. With the Luncheon Kingdom, you had to find the 4 different ingredients. Like, I was just going insane. I was just like...
The Luncheon Kingdom, you just have to beat the bird, and to do that you have to get the meat to trick the bird into it, and then the level layout completely changes, and you have to climb up the mountain and stuff. There aren't a lot of worlds that require you to find 4 specific things. There are the 2 you mentioned, which is, do the 4 rooms in snow, and do the 4 switches in that one, and then find the 4 musicians in the Metro Kingdom.
Yep.
And that's about it. I mean, the Wooded Kingdom is climb to this place and defeat this villain, and then the map changes slightly and you climb up to this place to do it. And the Bowser's Kingdom is just a straight climb up to the top. And
Cap Kingdom is climb
Cascade
up.
Kingdom is a straight climb up to the top, so is the Cap Kingdom. The Lake Kingdom is navigate your way to the bigger area and then fight the boss. But I mean... that's less formulaic. Well, I mean, that's about as formulaic as Mario Galaxy's were, because Mario Galaxy's levels were all just get from point A to point B, the new Super Mario Bros. Formula. And even Mario 64, like, when you enter the Bob-omb Battlefield, the first thing you have to do is climb to the top of the tower. And the same for Whump's Fortress, climb to the top of the tower. And the Snow Kingdom is you climb to the bottom of the mountain. And it's always get from point A to point B for the first missions. And... you can get stars out of order, but you can get moons out of order here. The game kind of encourages you to get the moons as you go, and you don't... in almost every kingdom, you never need to complete the main story. Like, in almost every time I was in a kingdom, I got enough moons before I reached that final boss, and if I wanted to, I could have just left. I could have left the Seaside Kingdom without fighting the octopus, I could have left the Snow Kingdom without doing the race, and so on, because the game lets you have that option to get the more moons. Obviously, to unlock the altered version of that level and get the chance to get more moons, then you do need to beat the boss. But I don't think it's never a requirement, and I think that's a better choice than what Sunshine had, where Sunshine you had to do all the shines in specific orders. You couldn't go out of your way. Galaxy was the same, so was Galaxy 2. Super Mario 64 is the only one that let you do it out of order. And even then, there were some stars where you had to jump in at specific times, I believe, to have it be the level set out.
Especially
in that
the coins.
Yeah, the red coins only appeared, I think. No. Actually, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
The normal coins. There's some stars, if you have selected that, you can't get 100 coins.
Okay, well so you have that, whereas Odyssey never gives you that problem. You can get every single moon when you enter a level. And I've seen some people complaining about, the linearity of it, that, in Super Mario 64 you could pick which level you go to next, and Odyssey only gives you that choice twice. But I don't necessarily see that as a massive issue, because even in Mario 64, unless you just did everything in Bob-omb Battlefield and then everything in Whump's Fortress and you could skip the next 2 levels to go to Bowser's to do Bowser, fair enough. But you're going to eventually go back and do those levels, and they're going to be either way too easy, or you're just going to avoid them and then you're missing part of the experience. Whereas Odyssey puts you on level to level. You never know whether you're going to like a level or not until you try it out. So I feel like that's only an issue on repeat playthroughs, where you're like, oh, I don't like the Lake Kingdom, so I don't particularly want to go there, but I have to because the game's forcing me. I don't think that's an issue the first time, because you don't really know.
I will say this, that I don't mind the lack of a hub, because I've always thought that hubs are kind of empty, and they only serve you as like a level selection screen.
Yeah, they're a fancy level select.
Yeah, I don't think it's the lack of a hub is an issue, but there is like a lack of like skipping, like you mentioned, but
I don't necessarily, but like I said, I don't necessarily think that's a problem, especially when you don't have to do the main quest of that level in order to move on. You just have to hit the required moon count, which is pretty low.
It's usually like 10 or 13.
Yeah, when each level has usually about 60 odd moons. And the other thing, I know this isn't a complaint you said, but one I have seen around, is that there are too many small levels in this game. And I don't think that's not necessarily something I agree with. I feel like apart from the obvious 2 levels that are just for bosses, and the 2 post-game levels that are just for sort of specific moon challenges, I would say levels like the Lake Kingdom and the Lost Island aren't that much smaller than levels from Mario 64 or Sunshine or Galaxy. I mean, Sunshine had quite big levels, but like I said, there's a lot of empty space that never gets utilized, whereas the levels here feel more compact and every space feels like it's used for something.
I still think that, like, the moons, the way that they are in the game, it really feels like they just sprinkled a bunch of moons into the level instead of having the moon ideas first, if that makes sense.
I see. Like I said, I can see that for some of the moons, but I think it's still the minority. Like, they came up with the ideas and stuff first, built the levels around them, and then sprinkled in the minor moons just to keep people, like, you know, when they explore this area, they don't feel like they've wasted their time doing so.
But I will say this: the smaller kingdoms, I do think that the Cloud Kingdom, the Lost Kingdom, Snow Kingdom, the Ruined Kingdom, and then the 2 post-game kingdoms or sides of the moon are very small, and they're very lackluster. Especially like the Ruined Kingdom. There's like hold on, I can pull it up. There's 10 moons in that one, and it takes about like 10 minutes to 100% it.
The Ruined Kingdom doesn't bother me so much because, I mean, like the Sky Kingdom, it's essentially just a fancy boss level. Although what does annoy me with the Ruined Kingdom is that it's a big wasted potential, because the area looks so cool, and there isn't a ghost level in the game. And so the Ruined Kingdom has this great opportunity to be that, but it's not. It's just a boss level. But that doesn't bother me so much when there are so many other levels out there, because people complain about size, but levels like the Sand Kingdom and the Metro Kingdom are much bigger than any of the level from any 3D Mario game.
Sand Kingdom feels really empty, though. Because a lot of the space you have to be on the Jaxi.
Yeah, there is the Jaxi. The Jaxi's just there to get around easier, but almost nearly every spot has a moon or something there that's doable. Like, there's a big area where you have to collect the sheep, or there's that big area to the west that seems a bit pointless, but there's like a good 4 or 5 moons there, and a bunch of purple coins and a seed, and that's also where the moon cube is. And so there is stuff to do there still.
I have like the moon list in front of me for my game, and basically the western part of the map is not. There's a clear focus in the middle where the town is and near the starting area, but then the west and the east there's just sprinkled throughout the level.
Yeah, but I think they're sprinkled at key points, and the distance between each moons isn't that significant. I admit there's no reason to go to the west of the Sand Kingdom once you've got all the moons in that area, because there's nothing to really do or see there. And I think that is an issue with the design of the Sand Kingdom, but that's, again, it's the same issue that almost every other 3D Mario game has had, and the Sand Kingdom is basically the only level that has that problem. and it's one of the
and
earlier levels.
Cap Kingdom is another small kingdom.
Cap Kingdom's another small kingdom, but that's more like a tutorial kingdom.
Yeah, but like that's like 6 levels already. That's like 6 out of 17.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the other 9 levels are just as big, if not bigger, than previous levels from previous 3D Mario games, and there's a lot more to do. Even the Cap Kingdom's small, but there's still a lot to do in there, at least as much as there was to do in like Wet Dry World or something.
Like how many levels were there in Mario Galaxy?
Yeah, but a lot of those levels had 1 or 2 stars and were essentially get from point A to point B and nothing else.
Okay, how many like full levels maybe? I don't know on top of my head, to be honest.
The Beehive Kingdom, the Toy Kingdom.
I like how we're so used to Odyssey, you're just calling them Kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, the galaxies, the Honey Galaxy, and then there's the Honey Galaxy again, but it's in reverse and it's like autumn themed.
The Boo's Boneyard Galaxy.
Yeah, Boo's Boneyard. But even then, that's still
robot.
Boo's Boneyard is still just a straight. You just walk up to the mansion, and then the mansion is just a linear pathway to Luigi, and then that's it. You never do it again. Apart from like a race. That's the thing. That's why Nintendo split them into Galaxy, Galaxy 2, and the 3D series as all being, linear-driven experiences, and then Sunshine, Odyssey, and 64 being open-world experiences. Because like Odyssey has more levels than Sunshine does. And it has less levels than 64, but 64 has a lot of repeat levels, 2 snow levels, 2 plains levels, and as the levels get on, they get less and less expansive. Like the Skyland is basically a linear path to the middle, and then you pick left, right, or forward to get whatever 1 or 2 stars are in that direction, and then you rinse and repeat every single time. But yeah, there's 2 water levels as well in Mario 64. And again, there's only like 6 stars in each level, whereas compared to Odyssey's 60-odd moons. So you're spending more time in the levels in Mario Odyssey than you are in Mario 64. And there's more to do in each level in Mario Odyssey than there is in Mario 64.
I guess with Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy 2, like you feel hyped going into the moons, or going into the stars, I should say, because they kind of show you the preview, and they're like, okay, this is what you're doing. With Mario Odyssey, they don't really have that set up, so you're just like, it feels like you're just stumbling upon them sometimes. And you're just like, oh, I guess there's a moon in this tree. I'll go grab it.
Well, I guess that becomes the question of game design over, I guess, expectations. Because what Mario Odyssey does, letting you collect moons and stuff, is something that 3D Mario fans have been wanting and complaining about every single time there's a 3D Mario game. Since Banjo-Kazooie came out and basically did that, from Sunshine onwards, every single time people have been like, why can't I just collect all the moons as I go? Why does the game force me out of the level and then have to do it again? And the reason for that in those games is because they literally change the world. It's not... Mario 64 is the only one where it's not possible... Well, sorry, Mario 64 is the only one where it is possible to get moons out, to get suns out of order, because in Sunshine and Galaxy it's all a straight pathway. And Odyssey tries its best to have the expectation ones because it has clear set... What I would say is, like, if this was Mario 64, there are these clear set, like, 5 or 6 moons that build up the main story. And every time you get one, it does a little cutscene and gives you a preview for where the next one is, highlighting it. You get a name on the top for what the moon is. So Odyssey still tries to capture that feeling. It can't get it as successfully as 64 does, but that's because it's putting streamlining and game design first before it's doing essentially the padding and expectation part of things. And I think that's a benefit more so than it is a loss, and at least Odyssey tried to keep that feeling in.
So we're running up close on time, Push. Are there any final comments you want to throw in?
Galaxy's better.
Mario Odyssey gives you costumes, though.
Okay, like I really like a lot of things in Odyssey. Like, I like the costumes. I like having Cappy, but I just feel like there's so much more that they could have done with. I hope there's an Odyssey 2.
Yes.
So like Galaxy, that they can improve upon it.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Odyssey is an absolute perfect game, because there are definitely areas where it either does worse than its previous games or just has really bad decisions. Like, they clearly hit 800 something moons and decided we'll just push it to 999 for people because there's no reason to do that at all. And people say the game's too easy, but I would argue that all Mario games are easy, and there's a lot of post-game challenge, more so in this game than other Mario games. But I think the capturing thing allows for new and memorable stuff to happen every single level, and the coins are much better in this game than they are in any other game. I think the live system is definitely better here than other games. And I think the kingdoms are more memorable than other games. Like I said, Mario 64 has, 2 snow levels, 2 water levels, 2 plains levels. There's only a handful of kingdoms like Tick-Tock Clock, which truly stand out, or aren't early levels, because everyone remembers the early Mario 64 levels. Everyone remembers the Snowy Mountain, but not very many people remember the one with the giant snowman in it, because it comes so late and it's basically the same thing going in reverse. But Odyssey, apart from maybe the Lake Kingdom, and the Cloud Kingdom, I think every single level is memorable, because it's completely different in style and tone and what's there, and I think that goes a longer way to make people think back on these levels than they would do on 64, and especially Sunshine and Galaxy, because Galaxy has a ridiculous amount of levels that are all the same. But yeah, those are my end thoughts.
Thank you for joining Source Gaming for this Mario Odyssey discussion. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you like Odyssey, or do you think it's not as good as people are making it out to be? Consider supporting us on Patreon for some exclusive perks, and it also helps push the team even further than we already are.